good life!
As a species, we are pretty certain for the most part that what is out there concerning animals and diseases. But if you really believe that, then you are a huge dork. Let's go back to a time when a cave system in Africa was consistently letting out diseases every few decades that would ransack the area, creating problems for the locals and visitors alike. As your guts liquefied and you bled from your ears and eyes and also your butt, the reality is, even with somewhat modern medicine, for the longest time, we had no idea where it was even stemming from. In fact, if that interests you, I have a video over on covering that on my channel Roanoke Tales. Anyhow, shameless plug aside, take other diseases for instance. The reality is that we can get out in front of a lot of things, but concerning viruses, it becomes astronomically more difficult, which brings us around to today's topic. As a father wants to rekindle the family band, he would then take everyone out camping where he would begin hallucinating, but also maybe not at the same time. As meat suits completely eviscerated would turn up, it became rather apparent that something else was out there, or someone. So in today's episode, let's discuss what is really happening here, as well as the pathophysiology of the disease that it seems to be co-presenting with, or is it? Guess we just have to watch to find out. We kick off our story with birds chirping and crows cawing. As this guy tells this woman why they are awake, she complains about not having coffee, which, why not just get up earlier and make coffee? Well, that would make too much sense, Roanoke. They are allegedly lost on a very clearly defined trail, as Homeboy here remarks how the birds are very quiet out here. That's never a good thing. Actually, that usually means there is a predator nearby, which means back out of the area slowly and never run. The woman immediately steps off the path to go drop the kids off at the pool, as Broseph here steps on a dead bunny. So we know there's a hawk in the area. Ooh! So as he tells the woman to stop, he then calls out to someone as they find a carcass. I mean, technically, it's just a deer carcass, so it's not really that alarming if I'm being totally honest with you. Out here, there are probably bears as well as mountain lions at minimum. Being spooked, however, they then take off together into the sunset as they run. Speaking of completely novice to running, apparently, newborn runner then slams into a tree as a deer is now on the trail as well. Also, if you guys had cell signal, you aren't really that lost then. The birds start flapping their wings as we jump to our massive intro about the Jersey Devil. If this turns out to be the Jersey Devil, I am never listening to you guys again. Okay, so future Roanoke here. You guys are on thin ice. I'll allow it. This time. Nothing like biting the hand that feeds. Jumping over to a lost dog photo. Dr. Mambo, no! Someone's old man is packing a car as the son is upset that they are leaving before the dog comes home. Also, this dude has a British accent sometimes, and then sometimes he doesn't. I have no idea what's up with that. Meanwhile, rebellious Trek 5 daughter is upstairs smoking something, as they had to rewrite that entire movie because everyone guessed exactly what was going to happen with it, because there are no more original ideas for animated films. The dad says they need this trip, but it seems like everyone imaginable just isn't up for this monster family vacation. How come nobody ever wants to hang with their old man? I love camping with my dad, he's a real one. As they ask what happens if the dog comes back while they're gone, the son then runs back inside. The old man doesn't look so good as he's had a cold last week. Well, man, after a week, your body should be back up in action. Past that point, you probably need to go to a doctor because that's a bit peculiar. The daughter then hugs her friend as they head out to definitely not be harassed by the Jersey Devil on a Friday. Fun fact, if a month actually starts on Sunday, it will have a Friday the 13th, with headcanon saying that's exactly what's happening here. The offspring then fight in the car, as they do because, it's a car trip, as they enter a hell on earth known as New Jersey. Who willingly goes there? Okay, real talk though, as many times as I bash New Jersey, you know who knows it's a joke? People from New Jersey, so they can be my friend. However, just know, California, you have literally caused me to join forces with New Jersey concerning dunking on your state as a result. Make fun of California to a Californian. For some reason, they freak out. Why does this tangent even exist? I don't know. I'm in a truck. Well, actually, I was in a truck with my girlfriend driving as we were going through Wisconsin. So what else is there to do to make random connections? Also, she told me as I took a nap after I wrote this that she dozed off for a second while we were on the highway. She will never be driving again. Entering Pine Woods, they are there to do some camping as the daughter doesn't want to be there. The mom doesn't know if it's a good idea to be there, and the son wanted to stay for the dog. And the dad tells everyone get over it, there's a ton of monsters out here, wham. Taking everyone's electronics, he then focuses on not driving as he spots a deer with CWD not looking so hot. Getting out to check on it, it's eviscerated, as he hears sticks snapping. Also, look, I know, they're tangents, it is what it is, but this just reminded me when I was 14 years old, I was walking on a path with my friend, and we found a headless deer, and then we went home and told his mom, and she was like, oh my god, was it still alive? Bro. Anyways, random memory triggered aside, this would be a great time to get back into your car because that's actually a pretty fresh kill. Turning around, his daughter has gotten out of the car and scares the holy hell out of him. She's upset about the dead deer. Nature's brutal, gal. Just kind of get used to it. Birds gotta swim, fishes gotta eat. Continuing their drive, they have gotten to the campgrounds. Ranger Rick then comes out as they are assigned their campground, Site F. As in F's in the chat for this family. Old meme, I know, but it checks out. Also, I officially know what Italian brain rot is. Bruh, I get it. The E-memes appear to be the origin point, but I'd actually say the MLG memes might be a good place to start to see where this is stemming from, to identify why all of our brains are destroyed. It appears to just be a transcending generational behavior, actually. So getting out of the most populated campground I've ever seen, which is a total lie because it's fallish, so these places are absolutely loaded with people around this time. The son then tells Ranger Rick they saw a dead deer, and the frat bros are already talking to the daughter in the background. Not a good sign. Having been a frat bro, I mean, to be honest with you, it's just all standard interactions, really. There's, don't go pike. Don't ever go to a pike party, is what I'm saying. Ranger Rick then goes to find that deer, as he says it was probably just a bear attack, but if him and his family stick to the trails, they will be fine. Also, never mind, with that hat, these bros are basically just hipsters, not frat bros. Honestly, I don't really know which is worse for your daughter. Probably both. Getting back to the campsite, music is blaring as the dude bros are hanging out. All right. If you do this at a campsite, you are in fact going to get a zip tie on your tent's zipper that night because, holy Lord, you are the bane of everyone's existence just trying to relax. Believe it or not everyone likes your taste in music, and you will cringe some years later when you remember what you have done. Just saying. So everyone has their technology, which then freaks the dad out for some reason as they start setting up their campsite. They hiked before doing that. That's pretty crazy. You never hike before camping. Anyways, the son then goes and grabs a knife as possible British father, who I will be making several puns on, is looking worse and worse. Wait, you brought grandma's ashes with you? Flashing back to the past, English Channel swimmer dad is crashing out hard as his arm hurts. Having the tent set up, the mom then comes in, the stepmom, asking if he is coming with, and I don't know why I paused there, as he says he's going to light the fire. That night, full mom, also fun fact, in February of 1865, that's the only time ever recorded where there wasn't a full moon. These fun facts are incredibly stupid, but I went to a bowling alley in Minot, North Dakota, and now they are ingrained in my brain. At the fire that night, everyone is sitting around telling ghost stories as hipster McGee over here starts talking about a woman who had 12 kids. Never married, always pregnant. You know, it's probably a crazy thing back in the day, but that's just kind of par for the course. The elders apparently got tired of this, I guess because the town was helping her. Honestly, I haven't figured that part out yet. Anyways, they told her that if she bore another offspring, she would be banished to the Barrens. Agreeing, she became violently ill afterwards and then stopped showing up. Oh good, morning sickness. She got pregnant again. Dang, she really can't help herself. Having the 13th kid, they told her she had to move on after she had the offspring. Well, it sounds like she would probably need some nutrition to feed all of these younglings, which brings us around to today's sponsor. But first, this episode is sponsored by Factor. It's coming. The new year is almost upon us, which has some important implications for your health. I'll save you some time. Getting healthy isn't just showing up at the gym and getting rhabdomyolysis from just lifting heavy for 1 week and then giving up. It's actually foundationally correcting your diet and eating the things that will fuel your body, but you probably want them to taste good too. And today, Factor is here to deliver, literally. With their 100 rotating weekly meal options with 2 times more seafood and protein options, they're offering a convenient way to hit your protein goals, all while keeping it healthy with no refined seed oils, refined sugars, sweeteners, or artificial colors. All of this can't taste good, you might be saying. Wrong! With a balance of carbs, healthy fats, and proteins, I can personally say it is delicious and ridiculously filling. So if you're ready to avoid making the holidays stressful, or even just look towards a more healthy future with foundational nutrition, then head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code ROANOKEFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code ROANOKEFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. All right, let's get back to it. Anyways, real talk, it was the devil's offspring, what came out of her apparently, and it was allegedly not human. It had a baby's head but a kangaroo's body, the most fearsome hybrid. Negative 10 out of 10 storytelling, only scary if you're high. So this dude's stories suck, but as they all get quiet, someone in a mask then shows up, scaring them. Allegedly, Celtic patriarch. I know Celtic, but it can also be Celtic, like the Celtics, except apparently I looked it up in Old English. It's Celtic, I don't know. It's a hard K sound. Anyways, the patriarch is upset now at this turn of events. Brother, calm yourself. It is not that big of a deal. Having the outburst, he now appears like a total turd in the punch bowl, as he's told, you're kind of overreacting there, Chief. Yes, you did. Meanwhile, that night, Papa Brits is sleeping with his feet out. That's the number one way to have nightmares. If you keep having nightmares at night, it's because your feet are uncovered, or you have brain damage. Opening the tent, it's now daylight as he's out in the open and he sees something with wings flying overhead. As it lands, it begins chasing him as it is now night once more. He was apparently sleepwalking, me on 6 beers. As Richard over here requests the stepmom's phone, she was texting a guy named Brian as she says she never cheated on him. This was apparently a guy friend. Yeah, I don't really know here, man. I mean, it seems like a bit of a delicate situation. All I know is if you are hiding something that you are doing from your partner, and then your partner gets concerned, it seems like that is something they should probably be concerned about, because you're hiding it. But then again, if they're overreacting, that's kind of a difficult situation. Anyways, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. It doesn't really matter. You don't care about my opinion on it anyhow. So, moving past that situation and straight into the same situation, I guess, because he ran like 3 years away, he then spots a deer as something comes falling down. Ah, very good. It's another carcass. It is now Saturday as everyone wakes up and is quiet as Dad hasn't woken up yet. Everyone knows that. Oh god, he's awake now. Popping pillies, he then checks his arm as his infection is looking worse and worse. See, at this point, you gotta understand. If your arm looks like this and you're just ignoring it, you are going to lose that arm due to infection. Incredibly stupid to let it get to this point, because if the humerus bone becomes compromised, say goodbye to old righty. Stranger in the tub from here on out. So as the daughter then goes on a hike with a hipster boy over here, should be sus about that, Hidden Xperia gets up from his sleep as then he looks around. He's asked if he found her phone as he's given grievous news. His daughter has gone on a hike with a hippie. Also, the cops are there for some reason, as In It Man remarks he isn't actually hiking. Correct, I guess. What? Anyways, the daughter then walks up with hipster as the cop comes over to talk to the dad, spotting the dad's ashes. That was a difficult one. The mom comes over as the cop then asks how one of the friends of the dude bro went missing that night. The cop then starts saying he said he saw the dad walking around the campsite last night, that bastard, according to one of the dude bros, so now apparently he's sus for walking around his own campsite. Makes sense. The cop somehow, against all odds, found also the phone of the mom that the dad threw out, as then he heads out, just like, oh, here's your phone. Okay. How did you know it was her phone? So the cop then asks where they are from, another hell on earth apparently, Philly, as then he says he hopes they enjoy the rain. Also, I think with the Lore Lodge, I'm supposed to be doing a podcast. Oops, I just scraped the roof. Anyways, I'm supposed to be doing a podcast in February with them. Up in Philly, I believe, so that'll be interesting. But walking back to their car, the daughter is upset at this turn of events as they stop due to the son having to water the flowers. Looking a little rough, Churchill then denies drinking any water, which is always a good sign, as the son then walks 3 years away just to pee. And down there's one of the dude bros that has been eviscerated, which is also not an ideal situation. Although, again, why is it that in every movie someone has to walk so ridiculously far away just to pee? Linking back up with the group, I knew this movie wouldn't take out a youngling this early on, and now a 20-something-year-old is playing as a teen. Weird. Being in the deep woods, you guys are clearly off trail, by the way, but miraculously, finding the trail once more, the son questions the L holders of 1776 dad, and if he really knows where he's going. No is the answer. Picking up his son, he keeps walking and sweating as they are very clearly lost. Approaching another campsite, nobody is actually there. Then going to check one of the tents, everything seems completely abandoned as they miss one of the largest clues, but the daughter then spots it first. A dog has shuffled its mortal coil, big sad, hallucinating their own dog. The dad continues crashing out as he's seeing things. Bro needs to go to the hospital immediately. Pulling his knife, he then turns to his family as he says he's going to cut him loose. Carrying the dog away, yes. But why? Oh, he throws him into the water. Yeah, it was totally worth it, and now the water source is contaminated. That was very important to do. Very good. So the family is now crashing out over this as the daughter is upset, and they set up their tent, and then they realize the other tent is shredded. How did they not see this prior when they were looking at the tent? I have no idea, but as they look inside, we jump back over to the dad, who is also continuing to crash out hard. You have a bad infection, brother. If nothing else, the fever is going to get you. Something then gets thrown into the water as he pulls his knife, calling out for anyone nearby as rocks start getting thrown. Oh, thank God, the hipster's back. He then hands him his knife as he is questioned if he is following the family. Yeah, I'd be a little sus of this guy at this point, too. So, South of Wales man tells him to go back to the main campsite, but the daughter texted him saying, oh, let's go for another walk. Being poetic, he starts quoting the story the hipster told the night before, which, again, he's crashing out hard right now over this. But turning around, he looks into the woods as he backs hipster boy up towards the water as it begins raining on them. Back over at forward operating campsite, the dad then grabs the phone from his daughter, who is definitely in love with hipster boy, as the mom comes over and tells him he's going crazy right now. She informs him of the going-ons and how he is very clearly sick and there are problems. As soon as the rain stops, they're going to get out of there and go to a hospital. Why not do that now? It's just rain. It won't kill you. The daughter then gets on her phone again to call hipster boy, but he's not answering anymore. Yeah, he's about right. Also, why are you guys just standing in the rain? Going back to the tent, the Bone Temple then sits outside at the fire in the rain without getting wet somehow, as he's informed they should go back tonight. He says he's sorry, he scared everyone. My bad. There better be something that happens at some point in this movie, otherwise I'm going to lose my mind. Also, Fish and Chips here killed Dr. Mambo, apparently. Their Dr. Mambo. He says he got home and saw that he was acting aggressive. He got bit by him, so he took him out. That is concerning. If your family pet bites you in that capacity and they've never shown any aggression prior, you go to the hospital. So that night the rain is stopped as they are now waiting on Charles Dickens to feel better before they leave out. The daughter says she's now not getting any service, so she's gonna go walk around the woods at night alone in the dark with her phone to try to get some signal. Hearing his voice and also the phone calling, she calls out to him, but he, can't see him. Also, it was a hard S noise. Very whistly. Calling again, she then hears his phone nearby as something runs by her, which then she gets scared and goes back to the campsite. Finding the old man who is looking rough, the mom asks if Oscar was foaming at the mouth because he also has pus in his eye. Bro, my God, is this race? Could it actually be what it needs to be? Telling British Cujo over here that he needs to sleep. No, what you need to do is leave everything behind and get to the hospital immediately so they can enact the Milwaukee Protocol, but it still might leave you with some brain damage. It's too late now, though. For the most part, to be honest with you, even with the Milwaukee Protocol, so, oh well. The dad informs them that he does have a headache, but he will feel better tomorrow. Unlikely. He is also starting to hallucinate even worse. Normally at this point, I would go on my entire tirade about the science of all this, but the science portion exists for this reason, because it has to. Returning back to the kids, she then tells them that Benedict Arnold is sick. She says she is going to stay with them and have a giant sleepover. It is now Sunday. The next morning, he wakes up hearing leathery wings flapping. No way he's awake, he straight up has rabies. Of course, what's the deal with the eviscerations then? Turning around, he sees a creature growl at him as a stepmom gets up next to see what's going on with him. Small British youngling with smallpox in a man's body says the Jersey Devil was here. They are officially packing up and leaving because of this, something you should have done on Friday. Starting their hike out of there, nobody can see anything as they are completely lost. They're in the Pine Barrens, but they still have phone signal, so how can you actually be lost? Losing sight of the Anglo-Saxon progenitor and son, they then go to chase as then they spot, oh no, the hipster bros are gone! Finding the knife from Jack the Ripper, maybe the old man is going around ripping guts out. We'll have to see. They keep calling out to the youngling, but he doesn't respond. Yeah, you guys might just be on your own here. Spotting a mannequin in the water, they then pull it out as it transforms back into the youngling. Performing CPR, one must ask, did they even check to see if he had a heartbeat first? Bringing him back, the dad has now arrived as he starts convulsing, as he starts crashing out even worse, seeing the Jersey Devil laying on the ground. Well, he's laying on the ground as the cops are now doing 39 and a 25, which is illegal. Pulling up to the campsite, Ranger Rick informs the cops where to look as they start searching for them. They have tied up the old man so that he can't keep crashing out, as the mom is not looking so great. I must have missed the part where she got stabbed, I suppose. Figgy Pudding over here then calls over his daughter as she elects to not help her dad, probably a good plan, as he keeps trying to break free. He yells it's not safe out there. Well, it's not exactly safe here either, Dad. Oh, I see. The stepmom actually broke her leg, literally right below the knee. Ouchies. Talking to Dad of the Year, he keeps crashing out as he requests with the utmost calmest tone to be released, and he implores her to reconsider, but she doesn't want to do that as he says he's not crazy, you're crazy, Ghost of Napa. The cops now find Frat Bro eviscerated as the younglings keep running. The son informs the daughter that something was following them, so they try to find a hiding place. The stepmom now grabs a stick as she's in a great amount of pain and she needs to stabilize that break while the dad keeps trying to escape. She passes out as main cop number 1 is informed that they found a body. The dad, meanwhile, can see that the creature is flying around. Spawning into the clearing, the mom then grabs something because Sir Henry Clinton is free. Oh god. The sun is now crashing out, having spotted something also in the clearing. Seeing a mountain lion come out, Dr. Mama gets straight up domed by some random hunter. Dr. Mama, no! The dad has now been knocked unconscious as the mom gets up to just sort of thug it out. Looking around, she screams as a shadow then appears. It looks like full English breakfast is back up in action. As he starts walking out of there, he's not looking so good, and hearing a low growl, he starts hallucinating hardcore even further. As the daughter yells at her, the English menace, with the hunter being completely confused by this situation, but he gets a good read on it though, as then he kind of just like turns on the dad. The stepmom now appears in the background as the hunter tells Guy Fawkes over here to back up. Bit of a tense situation, isn't it? How many more British references can there possibly be? Then grabs the force multiplier as it turns into a pretty good struggle with him allegedly spotting the creature. Grabbing the force multiplier, he knocks out the hunter as he runs away after the family, or I guess the Jersey Devil, I suppose. As he finds them, my god, this thing is actually real. Seeing just English raccoon though, the gal doesn't drop and instead stands there as the old man gets popped by the cops. The cops now see the creature as they realize, oh god, it's real. Main cop gets jumped by your average New Jerseyite and taken out as Shepherd's Pie then gets jumped next, and seemingly that's all she wrote on that one, and thus concludes The Barrens. Hello and welcome to the signs portion. You may have noticed this video is way later than normal. Well, between the Home Alone video recorded in a blizzard and driving back from North Dakota to Georgia to Alabama again, your boy has been gassing it a little bit. But that's neither here nor there because we aren't here to talk about my supernatural ability to travel across the country because I have a fear of flying. What we are really actually here to talk about is why rabies is horrifying. Oh, and I suppose the ecological niche that the New Jersey Devil would actually have to fill because its existence actually somewhat makes a lot more sense than you might originally think. But you know where we gotta start. Starting with the rabies. You know, I can't help myself. There are a few things that actually scare me in this world. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't really want to get sick and bite the dust or fall from really high up or, I don't know, be magically transported to where an anglerfish is, but rabies and prions, absolutely terrifying. Anglerfish, disgusting blights. Anyways, longtime watchers of this channel will already know why prions are considered to be a massive blight on this planet as well, but pretty much everyone, myself included, should be horrified by them. However, when it comes to rabies, the horror behind it is not so much, that it wants to just infect you, but the whole purpose is to actually take you over concerning your meat suit and cause predictable responses from your body so that it can further spread. That's what's wild about it. Viruses do not think. However, this virus in particular is able to inspire specific interactions with the immune system and hijack proteins that facilitate movement with the environment. And that is going to be you. So let's start from the drop. There you are, playing with a raccoon. You didn't choose this. You didn't want this. Mainly because this is an old meme I'm referencing, but here it is anyhow. It bites you on the leg. At first, the bite is inflamed, and you may even get a mild cold from it. But that's just going to be from the bacteria itself. At first, you may be thinking to yourself, it's probably not really that big of a deal. Raccoon mouths are pretty gross. I mean, they eat trash. But as soon as that skin was pierced, a countdown timer had begun. But you were unaware of it because you weren't watching Roanoke Gaming, so tough break, bro. What you didn't know is that the rabies virus has just been injected into your musculature. Now, you were confused because a raccoon didn't seem aggressive, so what's the deal? Well, rabies actually comes in two forms, and it isn't always there, making you destroy and bite everything in front of you, like Cujo, basically. That is the version that is known as like furious rabies, and it's not even so much that really you're furious, it's just the animal is typically in pain and scared, and so it bites and reacts aggressively in order to stop what it can't even imagine is causing the pain in the first place. This is why when humans are infected, we do not get as aggressive, at least to the point of biting others, because we are aware of what is causing it and how it's spreading. No, what you are dealing with is the other version of rabies, known as paralytic rabies. I've actually run across this before with a raccoon. Thank God I had on my firefighter gear at the time when I went to go mess with it, but essentially the animal doesn't really move or react that much. It's not completely catatonic, but its movements are slowed and very delayed. It is sometimes referred to as dumb rabies, but essentially the nervous system has become so heavily inundated with the rabies virus that their neurological capacity has been heavily decreased due to likely damage building up, but also the fact that it is interacting with the neuromuscular junctions. Very likely the brainstem also are areas that are going to be affected along with the spinal cord. However, for some reason, You allowed yourself to get bitten by one of these animals. Slow reaction time, probably. Get good. As the rabies virus, hailing from the Rhabdoviridae family, belonging further into the Lyssavirus genus, enters the muscles, they will quietly kind of just move in and begin reproducing. Now, reproducing is a generous term. They will begin being reproduced by the muscle cells. Now, at first, this doesn't really inspire too many symptoms. The latent period, as it's known, is what makes this disease so dangerous. After the bite heals somewhat, people will assume themselves to be okay. The reality is, you're getting closer and closer to your own death. Joy abound. Eventually, the virus will begin to spread outside of the immediate area and into the motor neurons themselves that innervate the muscle. The virus is naturally drawn to the electrical activity of these neurons as, again, it has a goal to continue spreading. Once in the motor neurons, this is where if you don't start getting this under control immediately, you're going to have real problems in a few days or a few weeks, depending on how unlucky you actually are, and your own biomechanics and the chemistry associated with everything. We'll get there. Now I can hear you asking, Bruno, why doesn't the immune system just jump in and start stomping some Lyssavirus if we have vaccines that do that and then make you immune? See, that's the problem. If the immune response requirement is not large enough, you never actually have a strong enough response. The rabies virus is absolutely a doucher status for this, but once entering the peripheral nervous system, it will then subdue the antiviral genes that each cell possesses, but it will also begin to interfere with the interferon response. Meta. The interferon response, of course, not only disrupting viral reproduction within the cell, but also alerting the immune cells that something is currently invading that cell, which normally it's not that big of a deal, but neurons actually, like nerve cells, they're what is known as immune privilege. That means the immune system will largely ignore these cells in most instances, or just have like a deft touch when it comes to dealing with them. Whereas your cytotoxic T cells and natural killer T cells will happily tell an epithelial cell to KYS if it gets in its way. A neural cell is more protected because if that is destroyed, the body could lose functionality. So does not produce as many interferons. Because of this, the immune system will not recognize rabies as spreading, as the nerve cells usually are not dealt with concerning this type of infection. Directly anyhow. Indirectly, like in the immediate area, the immune system can actually still patrol and deal with invaders. When it comes to the vaccine itself, this is a defunct version of the virus, or like a piece of it, and as a result, what it will end up doing is totally freaking the body out, as the invader isn't hiding in the nervous system and instead it is actively out in the open, and this will produce a ton of antibodies to the invader as your body becomes acutely aware of the issue. And this is why after you're infected, if you take the vaccine in time, it's sort of like putting up wanted posters everywhere. Even if rabies is already in the peripheral nervous system, at this point your immune system can spot it before it continues to the spinal cord. But you didn't do that. You decided it was no big deal when you were bitten by that raccoon, and so no vaccine is coming. The virus then entered the outskirts of the nervous system, and it will now use it to kind of basically be somewhat of a highway to the brain. There are proteins known as motor proteins, and these will actually transport materials along microtubules either towards the cell body or away from it. Dynein and kinesin. Dynein moves towards, kinesin moves away from the cell body. And this process, as it continues, rabies will actually hijack the dynein process and move towards cell bodies. With no wide-scale immune response, they will continue to jump from neuron to neuron, moving at a rate around 12 millimeters to 100 millimeters per day. I know, gross, right? Anything associated with rabies would use metric or heathen units to actually make sense, like, have something everybody's going to understand, and put those in the Lord's units. That's half an inch to almost 4 inches a day from the point of the bite. And this is why if your big toe was bit, you would have much more time in comparison to, say, if your neck or face was bitten. It also depends on the viral load and how your immune system actually responds, because sometimes it can catch wind of this disease and inspire a rather large response. Very few people have naturally survived rabies in the past, but it's like 4. So it's negligible and should be chalked up to a Chips Dubbo situation being invaded by... Wait, was it Chips Dubbo? Let me fact check. It was Jenkins. GD Jenkins, fire your weapon. Anyways, he got taken over by a weaker form of Flood in Halo, and his nervous system was able to fight for control much longer than normal. Anyways, back to the rabies. We're going to talk about the creature here shortly, trust me. But where you are entirely boned is when the virus enters your spinal cord. Upon this happening, your fate is all but sealed. It will then travel to the brain incredibly quickly, way faster than 12 millimeters to 100 millimeters. Once it gets there, you're screwed. But this is where symptoms will begin. In regular animals, this will cause the aforementioned aggression and paralytic consequences. In humans, the beat is still the same as the last, but the interactions are different given our brain's ability to function. The rabies virus will still produce in the salivary glands, or reproduce, and the glands themselves are heavily impacted, leading to constant leaking. For animals, this is the #1 way that it spreads. For humans, we don't bite one another, so actually we're just sort of a dead end for rabies. Now you might be asking, well, Roanoke, why is it that if it's in the peripheral nervous system, the vaccine works, but not if it gets into the brain? Because your brain is absolutely immune privileged. In this area, if your actual immune system was to operate at basically the capacity it needs to, none of us would survive. We would just die of brain damage because it would be way too much. Too many neurons would be destroyed. Not a great time. It's a bit of a glass cannon situation. So, we do things for it, right? We have vaccines to fix the issues. Anyways, at this point, the brainstem, limbic system, hypothalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus are targeted to a degree, which then can inspire fear, aggression, arousal, thirst, and affect the autonomic responses, which actually results in what is known as hydrophobia, which is basically how people it's the spasming of the esophagus. The reason is it's a highly, choreographed is the best way to put it, movement for you to actually move food and water down your throat. When the brainstem is affected by rabies, this is disrupted, so you can no longer really swallow water. So your, trachea is right there. Not great. So then what ends up happening is, now that it's no longer coordinated, you end up almost drowning each time. So you literally do not want to drink anything because it feels like you're drowning every single time. But rabies is intentionally going after the behavior centers of the brain because in other animals attacking these areas allowed it to spread further and caused it to be most successful in these environments. This in turn shows what is going on with the dad. As he displayed symptoms, he was totally screwed. The sweating, sunken eyes, initial higher responsive immune faculties the week before all indicated it began moving to the central nervous system because it was pretty much on his upper arm. So if you take 4 inches, the dude had a week. And this is why now he's screwed. This in turn caused him to become more and more upset, or him, with his family in general, and then start grabbing people towards the end. The headache alone would be immaculate and would inspire the issue that plagued him the entire movie: hallucinations. The whole time, it was hard to know if what he was seeing was actually happening, or was it just him totally tripping out. But as we saw at the end, while he may have been tripping, the thing was really out there. It may be that the dreams he was having were the visual hallucinations induced, coupled with the more default mode network consistently running while sleeping, but the issue is, when it comes to the brain, one little thing can set it off. As neurons fire in the visual cortex, and specifically Brodmann's areas 18 and 19, this will result in complex visual hallucinations such as faces and figures. But to imagine a cryptid flying around, bit different. However, we can see that the infection does cause him to be rightfully paranoid about hipster extraordinaire trying to move in on his daughter. What does that dude even bring to the table? Bad haircuts? Like I have room to talk? However, one thing is undeniable. Bodies were turning up before they'd even gotten out there. Unless the dad was running around the park just for funsies earlier that week, and then bringing his family out there, taking out that deer and maybe that couple at the beginning, and then subsequently several others who may or may not have been related to a fraternity. The reality is something else was stalking the area. But the question remains, how plausible is that really? What's horrific is potentially, it does make sense. So let's start with the actual area we were looking at in the first place. So I dug into the geography of this place because I needed supporting facts. The New Jersey Pine Barrens are interesting, as they call it barrens, but really there are a lot of pine trees there. The reality is, though, pines are sort of like the weeds of trees, not very strong, and if they fall on your house, they kind of like to do it a lot because the roots don't go very deep. Also, they make terrible firewood. Their main purpose is just oxygen production, if I'm being totally honest with you, because humanity, number one. The trees are here just to fuel us, and even then it's just mostly microbes in the ocean. Anyhow, this area is as such because the soil here is very acidic and sandy, which historically not great for plant biodiversity, as there is not a whole lot of nutrition in this particular soil. As a result, what grows here are really just a few types of hardy, successful plants, and with that means the biodiversity concerning animal life is relatively low as well. Given that this area is also protected federally for the most part, but that's not like national park level, but it is protected, building in this area is not going to be allowed as much as just open land. As a result of this, human activity in the area currently is also relatively sparse. One of the things I think about, though, is Warhammer 40k, where they literally ground down every mountain, drain the oceans, and we live on the entire planet. I always think about that, eventually we would just have to collectively be like, yeah, no, screw everything. Let's just build, I guess. Anyways, in the past though, human activity was also relatively low because, I mean, think about it. It's the same reason why there are few predators in here as well. That's the same reason why humans of the past wouldn't be too interested in this space, because the big question is, where is the food? There are not too many animals that are worth hunting out there, and it's not like it would make great farmland either. These reasons have kept this area relatively free of human interactions, which in turn, should something actually be in there, it would be allowed to flourish and remain unimpeded by humanity for the most part. So when we look at the creature itself, it also gives us some hints as to what it is in the first place, and why it may stalk this area so vehemently. This is its hunting ground, make no mistake about it. Now, I'd love to start where we all know that we need to start, but I can't, as we never really see it in that capacity. However, based on eyewitness accounts of this creature, it is said to be bipedal somewhat, although that could just be, I mean, how it appears when it takes off. Also, just again, if you enjoy this kind of conversation, go check out Roanoke Tales. Got a little bit of a bleed over situation actually here. It's pretty crazy. Anyhow, it's been said that its limbs are covered in a thick, scraggly hair, although some claim it's actually a literal goat with wings, so that would make it quadrupedal and covered with hair. The creature has been said to have cloved hooves and sometimes human-like feet. Claws will exist on them, and for the most part, it appears to have a long forked tail. The head of this creature will be a goat-like head and somewhat similar to a horse, as it's been said. When we look at the creature in the movie, it's clear it has a more horse-like head, but the mouth opening would go further back and contain very large teeth. The nose itself appears to be much like a horse nose, and the horns on the head would stem from a goat. The eyes are incredibly difficult to see, but they do sit on the sides of the head, which is interesting as this would seem to suggest more of a prey configuration as it needs to watch the sides. On top of its head, a mane of hair sits, indicating that this is in fact a mammal, and this would mean that the wings themselves are very likely leathery, like bat-like wings rather than like the wings of a bird. Overall, not something you really want to ask to bring home and keep. But what's interesting about this species is the possibility that it could exist. See, something to remember about humanity is cryptid stories typically arise because there is predation that overlaps with humanity. In the past, stories were told of creatures because they were dangerous and an actual threat to possibly a hunting party or any youngling that may wander off into the woods. And this is why if someone is eaten by a bear or mountain lion, for instance, the animal is usually taken out because otherwise that animal could continue to be a threat to our species. Now, the moral implications, depending on the behavior of the person, are always going to be there, but the reality is that the animal may see other humans as food who have done absolutely nothing, and then they are just attacked. See, that's the thing. There's usually a reason for this. It's not a great reason. It doesn't always involve. Sometimes people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes people bring it upon themselves. It is unfortunate that the animal has to be taken out after that, but there's reasons for it. Anyways, these warnings exist for that explicit purpose, but there is something dangerous because there's likely been some sort of interaction between, the species as warned about and the humans warning about them. So in this case, this creature is worth warning about, which is potentially where the stories continue to arise from. If this is in fact the case, then this would mean this species exists here, but then the question remains, how would there be no record of it ever found? Easy money, brother. Again, if we look at the area, the reality is given the sandy, acidic soil, this means there would basically be no records of these things as the bones would rapidly dissolve. Given humanity's activity is sparse in the area for quite some time, this also means stories about its existence would largely be basically confirmation that people could only go off of, like there would be no direct evidence. But this still brings up why it would hunt in this area, or like why does it do that in the first place, or where it even came from. And as we look at this cryptid, the reality is it is built for something that no longer exists. The location that it is choosing to remain hunting is in an area that was absolutely a habitat for megafauna back in the day, roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. You're talking about large elk, potentially mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and a large sloth species, as well as humans that inhabited it for a little bit of time. Because it's important to remember, when the pyramids were being built, the last of the mammoth were dying. So while man may not have been its main prey source, I believe it would actually be the large sloth species that would go after. Given we are the ones that tell the stories, it could be that information about this thing were passed down from generation to generation. A large winged creature would swoop down and then eviscerate its prey. This makes an incredible amount of sense for the sloth species. They are slower, susceptible to eviscerations, like most species, and would never see the thing coming from above. This is literally a "bullet's my only weakness, how did you know" moment. But over time, however, as the climate would shift, and become warmer, the megafauna of the time would die off or move to different areas. And this would leave this species that we have affectionately called the Jersey Devil mostly on its own in the Pine Barrens with limited human interaction. Instead, it would turn to deer and smaller prey in order to survive. This may have actually led it to be smaller itself to actually, thrive in this new environment, I guess you could say, but the fact that it could fly would always give it a leg up on hunting. This creature would survive for thousands of years, hunting this specific area as humanity stayed away, given it was not all that important to develop. Over time, humans do what we know we need to do, given that this is our planet, and we would enjoy the world that we live on. This would cause an overlap in the areas, potentially bringing humanity back onto the menu in this one instance until we finally have confirmation of it, which would ultimately lead to us doing what we do. So the reality is, this is not some supernatural creature of demonic origin. Instead, it's simply a leftover relic of the past, and like anything else, if it bleeds, you can kill it. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. Natural species or something else? Who knows? If I get Roanoke Tales to 1 million subs, the deal was I was going to go find the Michigan Dogman in 2027, and if I get this channel to 2 million subs, I'll go find the Jersey Devil next. And with the new year upon us, probably not this year, probably not the next year, probably not the year after that, but on the current trajectory, I think 2030. Oh my god. Anyhow, if you did enjoy, then please leave a like and a comment. It helps get the video out there. And if you don't do that, you're a dork. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Instagram, Roanoke Tales link, and Patreon in the description if you'd like to support the channel. Speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. At the astronaut tier, we have It's Not a Spoon, Kusith, and Lipsy Genji. Thank you guys for your awesome support. At the astrophysicist tier, we have Death Dancer, Mayura, and Webitron Supreme. Thank you guys as well. And at the scientist tier, we have Stutz, Frank Shaftcrank, Some Big Nerd, Metric System, Invictus Echo, Official Texan, the homeless guy on the street, Jason, and Scott Osteen. Thank you guys as well. And to the rest of my patrons, I really do appreciate y'all's support. You're absolute ballers, and I love you. But alright, that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.